Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a sort of a brief introduction to the annotated bibliography, which is really the next component of the research paper after the proposal. Remember, the proposal is going to be due on Sunday, March 20th. So you have a little bit of time. You have your essay 4 that is due this Thursday. If you watched my previous video, I talk a little bit more about the actual research paper as it relates to some of the topics that I've listed and your proposal and how that sort of relates to the annotated bibs. Now, I'm just going to give you sort of a brief overview of what an annotated bib is. Next week, I'm going to give you a little bit more direction because I'm breaking the annotated bib assignment up into 3 sets just to make it a little easier for everybody, because if I left it collectively as one big project, your annotated bib would probably be, with all 6 sources and everything that you'd have to include, nearly as long as the research paper, if not a little bit less. It'd probably be more like, between 3 and 5 pages. So the reason why I'm breaking it up will sort of make the writing process, to make the whole research process maybe a little bit more easier for everybody, especially online. So what I'm going to do is share a little bit about what the annotated bib is. If you kind of read the handouts that I sent out earlier, I guess either over the weekend or earlier this week, I did send you some information via email that talks a little bit more, it goes a little bit more in detail about what the proposal is, what the annotated bibs are, and what a research paper is. But as it relates to this particular class and what I'm trying to do, I want to show you what I sort of, am expecting from everybody's annotated bibs once you get to that part. So, what is an annotated bib? For most of y'all, this might be the first time you've actually had to write an annotated bib. So, an annotated bib is a list of sources on a topic, which in this case would be your research paper topic, that offers a summary for each source. So, each source is going to be, again, if you watch some of these other videos I posted, your 6 scholarly sources. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in detail momentarily. So that's basically what I said, right? I said, in your case, after you have picked a research paper topic, which you have to do first, otherwise the proposal in the annotated bib is not going to make any sense. So you must have a research paper topic. I would say sooner rather than later. I mean, you definitely need to have a research paper topic by Sunday, March 20th, to be able to be successful with a proposal. If you don't have a research paper topic by then you're probably not going to make a really great grade on your proposal, and it's really going to kind of set you up for the remaining part or parts of not only this assignment, but the remaining weeks of the semester. Um, so after you pick a research paper topic and submit your research paper proposal next Sunday, you need to start gathering, analyzing, reading, and taking notes on your 6 scholarly sources that relate to your research paper topic. Again, I believe it's next Wednesday, we're going to have a library orientation. It's going to be virtual. I'm going to send out invites for those that can kind of join us live. It would probably be better because then you can ask our embedded Camden County Coastal Pines librarian, Lauren Reed, some questions if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to record it and you can kind of play it and watch it over. But if you need questions at that point, it's gonna have to be on your own. Either call the librarian up, email the librarian, or come to a campus where you can talk to any of our librarians. So this assignment collectively is worth, just like your proposal and the research paper, each one of these particular elements, right? Your proposal, your annotated bib, and your actual research paper is going to be worth 39% of your semester grade. So it's a big chunk. This is enough if you don't take the remaining major assignments seriously, that this, the proposal, the annotated bib, and the research paper on its own will be enough to drop you at least 4 letter grades or 40 points. It will be enough to get most people in D range, if not F range. So you could possibly fail the course if you don't do these particular assignments the right way. So what I suggest is after you finish Essay 4, to go ahead and start working a little bit on this, picking the topic, getting the proposal drafted and, finalized. You can send me drafts of your proposal. You can send me drafts of your annotated bibs once you start working on those, but you're going to have to go out and do your own research because everybody's going to have a different topic. You're going to have to read these sources. You're going to have to analyze these sources. You're going to have to take notes on these sources. You're going to have to highlight the quotations that you want to use, because the whole purpose of a research paper is you're going to use these 6 sources that you find are the best, and they're going to help you because you're going to use quotations, you're going to paraphrase, you're going to summarize parts of these 6 sources throughout your 6-page research paper. That's what a research paper is. You have to use research. You have to use the 6 sources that you picked and used in your annotated bib. So we'll talk a little bit more about documentation, how to quote, how to paraphrase, how to summarize. You should have probably had some of that in high school at some point, or a previous English class where you had to write a research paper. Your final quiz, which will be later in April, deals with citation and documentation via MLA. There's a study guide for that, I think, already in your weekly folder, and we will go over that as it gets closer to that final quiz. Now, there's really 2 parts to the annotated bib assignment. One is the bibliography or MLA citation line, which comes first, and then what comes after that citation line is the summarizing paragraph. Again, I will show you some models. I will show you some techniques that will help you create the citation line and the paragraph for each one of your sources. Your citation lines are worth 50% of your grade, so you definitely need to make sure those are correct, because each citation is worth 8.33 points. So it's a big chunk if you start missing various things that has to go into those citation lines. The summary paragraphs are worth 50% of your grade as well, which means each paragraph is worth 8.33 points again. So the way I'm going to grade your annotated bibs, you're going to have 3 sets, and we're going to talk about the deadlines and the due dates here momentarily, but you're going to have AB set 1, AB set 2, AB set 3. They're all out of 33.32 points, except for the last one, as you can tell, is 33.36. Collectively, it's worth 100 points. Now, this is what I'm going to do. Once I get all 3 of your annotated bib sets, I'm going to take the average. I'm going to add all 3 of your scores together. I'm going to divide it by 3, and whatever that score or those numbers show, that's going to be the final grade collectively for this assignment. So let's say a student makes a 45 on set 1, 67 on set 2, and an 84 on the final set. I add all those up, they become 196. I divide by 3, I get 65. Well, student X has made a 65 on the annotated bib assignment. So you want to make sure that you're doing these really well at the beginning, so you're not losing a good bit of points when it comes to your final grade with your annotated bib assignment. You can send drafts of these. I welcome drafts. You sort of go from possibly the easiest assignment in the class, the proposal, to one of the more challenging assignments, just because it is technical in nature, and you really have to sort of go out and collect these 6 sources and read them and be able to answer the questions that I'm going to provide next week that help you develop your paragraphs. So, 4 out of your 6 scholarly sources must come from either a college library, a public library, or if you're dual enrollment, they can come from your high school library. Meaning you need to get 2 scholarly books or ebooks and 2 scholarly journal articles or e-journal articles. So again, 4 scholarly sources must come from a library. The final 2 scholarly sources must come from 2 scholarly websites or web articles. Anything that ends with .edu, .gov, .org are for the most part pretty reputable websites. Anything that comes from like a .net, .com, or something that's, not necessarily educational or government or organization related may not be scholarly in nature, which if you attend that virtual library orientation next week, Miss Reed will go over this thing called the CRAP test, which will help you sort of determine which sources are really scholarly in nature, not only books, journals, but also websites. It's going to be key that you read and analyze your 6 sources really well, because as you are reading each one of these sources, you need to sort of highlight areas, highlight passages, highlight quotations that you want to use and put in your own research paper once you get to that point of drafting the research paper. Otherwise, you're sort of wasting your time just collecting sources and sort of formulating how I want you to formulate it and not really taking anything out of it, because again, the key word for research paper is research. If you do not have research in your 6-page research paper, if you do not use 6 scholarly sources in your research paper, have quotations, have them properly documented as a in-text or parenthetical citation or a works cited page, you're losing a good chunk of your research paper grade there. So don't turn a 6-page paper with no quotations, no documentation, no works cited page, because you're not following instructions when you don't add research in your actual research paper. So again, next week, I will provide the questions you would need to answer as you read each one of your 6 sources. And I will show you a method that you can create the citations using online MLA works cited generators, but also I will show you ways that you can take your answers from those questions and create your paragraphs. Generally, after you do the first two annotated bibs, um, which in this case would be the websites, the other four usually follow in order because you're basically doing the same thing. You just have four different sources um, that you're going to have to, answer the questions and stuff that I give you next week. So if you look after essay 4, which again is due this Sunday, we only have 7 assignments left. And a good chunk of them deal with this research paper project. You have your proposal, which we talked about in my previous video. That is due next Sunday on the 20th of March. The first set of annotated bibs, which is your 2 scholarly websites, are due Sunday, March 27th. Your second set, which deals with 2 scholarly journal articles, are due Sunday, April 3rd. Then we pretty much go on spring break. And when you return back from spring break, your final set, or set 3, your 2 scholarly book sources are due on Monday. Keep in mind, it's a Monday, not a Sunday, April 11th. We then have our quiz 6, or our final quiz, which is due on Sunday, April 17th. The final draft of your research paper is due on Thursday. Keep in mind, it's a Thursday, April 28th. And then we finish out our semester with a timed 60-minute essay, which will be your final exam, and that will be through ProctorU. I will send out some information about that as it gets closer to the final exam week. You really only have 2 days to complete the final exam, and I need those final exam essays in by 6 o'clock on May 4th, if not sooner. Afterwards, our semester is finished, and final grades will need to be calculated and due later that week. So as you can tell, it's going to be a really busy March. It's going to be an even busier April. April, we really only have 3 weeks of actual instruction because of spring break takes off the first week of April, basically. So keep in mind of your grade at this point as we move ahead. We have several folks in this class that are really, they're either 69 or lower. So D's and F's, not a whole heck of a lot of D's and F's, but there are probably a handful. If you're really failing this course at this point, I think I actually have somebody that has a 2 in the class. You probably really need to go and withdraw yourself from this particular class. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can go to the register and go through the paperwork and withdraw yourself. If you're a dual enrollment student and failing, you need to talk to your Coastal Pines High School coordinator to get that process going. If you're a regular traditional student, meaning you're not dual enrollment, you can email me and request to be dropped. Otherwise, if you don't do those methods to withdraw yourself, then whatever grade you have on May 5th, that's the grade it's going to be. And if you're not turning anything, chances are you're going to be sitting on a 0 May 5th, which is going to be clearly an F for the class. So I can't withdraw anybody if you need to be withdrawn without your request or going through the proper channels. If you're dual enrollment, you need to go through your proper channels to do that. So just keep in mind, right? This is week 9, we're heading on week 10. We don't really have too much time left. If you look, we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, Don't really count spring break, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit in May. So you probably have about 6.5 weeks at this point. Um, and what I say 6.5 weeks, if you have a C, you have 6.5 weeks to improve that grade. If you have a B, you have 6.5 weeks to improve that grade. If you have an A, you have 6.5 weeks to sort of keep that grade. D's and F's, depending on how low your D or F is, the 6.5 weeks may not matter too much at this point of really pulling it up, depending on, again, how low your grade is. Likewise, you have 6.5 weeks to lower your grade from where it is too. So if you have an A now, well, in 6.5 weeks, you could have a B or C or a D or an F. So you want to make sure that you take these next 7 to 8 assignments really seriously and you do well on them. I provide in-person tutoring at the Camden campus. If you want to come and get in-person tutoring, email me. We can kind of set up a schedule possibly that works for both of us. If you want to do something virtual, like a virtual tutoring through Teams or through Blackboard Collaborate, again, email me. We can set up something to fit both of our schedules. Otherwise, you can always submit your drafts and stuff to Smart Thinking first. And then after getting back the information from Smart Thinking, correct those drafts, and then you can send me the new draft. Students who use both Smart Thinking and myself to review drafts generally get the highest grade, not only on the assignments that they're submitting, but also the highest grade usually in the course. Again, those are optional. You don't have to do that, but it's strongly suggested, especially as we get into the research element of the course. You can always reach out by email, you can reach out by phone, you can leave a message. I do teach a few in-person classes, so if I don't get back to you right away, it's probably because I'm either teaching in-person classes or I'm traveling or whatever the case may be. But I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you succeed, but it works, both ways. I can meet you halfway, but if you're not willing to meet me the other half, it's really hard for me to do much more than what I'm doing without you putting in the effort. Online courses, as you probably know at this point, are not easy. They eat up a good bit of your time, but you just have to kind of keep in mind to stay motivated. You definitely don't want to be a procrastinator on these last 7 assignments, because each week you will start to see your grade drop and drop fairly quickly if you don't do so well on the remaining 7 assignments, or if you just don't turn anything in. Several folks have low grades at this point in this class just because they're missing deadlines and they're taking zeros. Zeros hurt. Each zero that you make, you're basically losing 20 points off your overall semester grade. So that's like 2 letter grades for each zero. By your second zero, you're basically missing, 4 letter grades. You're at a D, if not lower, depending on what your grade was before. 3 zeros, you're basically failing the class. You're at a 40 or lower, and chances are of pulling that up are pretty slim to none, especially as we get closer to May 4th. So in reality, May 4th is our last day. So just sort of keep that in mind as we move ahead. The other thing is that I see a lot, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, is spring break. Folks go off for spring break and then they never return. So they eat up, 3 or 4 zeros because they're just not motivated. They conk out, they tap out, whatever the case may be. They just don't turn anything in, and they see their high grade become really low by the time we get May 4th. Or the whole false impression. We have folks that go into spring break making really high B's and really high A's and think they can just turn in shoddy work the remaining 3 weeks or so, and then their grade, becomes their A becomes a C, or their B becomes a D, or their C becomes an F, so on and so forth. So just don't get overwhelmed. This is easy to get overwhelmed if you let it. If you wait to the last minute to do any of these assignments, it generally doesn't end well for your grade. It doesn't really end well for your health, because then you get stressed out, and it's real prone to get sick easy if you are already under a lot of stress from other classes and life in general. So with these annotated bibs, you have to sort of stay on track with them, because you have to actually go out and do the research and read them and then answer the questions and be able to type up the annotated bib stuff. So you can't really wait necessarily to the 26th or the 27th to really start doing the annotated bibs, because you may not have enough time to read those two sources. The same thing with the journal articles. Can't really wait until the second or the third to really read two journal articles, especially if you have to go to the library. Keep that in mind. If you're using our college library, most of them are only open Monday through Thursday from about 7:30 in the morning until about 6 or 6:30 in the afternoon. Some may be open on Fridays, but generally most Coastal Pines libraries are closed Friday through Sunday. That's not to say you can't use some of the databases and use Galileo and that type stuff online. You could still do that. But if you need to go and get something physical like a book or print out a journal article or something of that nature, you're going to have to keep in mind of Coastal Pines library hours. And I would probably go to the Coastal Pines library closest to you. Like if you live in Brunswick, I would go to the Coastal Pines library in Brunswick. If you live in Waycross, go to the one in Waycross. I wouldn't make special trips. If you are in Brunswick and don't need to go to Waycross, especially how gas prices are going up, then I wouldn't travel to Waycross Library unless you just have to go there for a class or something. You can use your public library. Again, you're going to have to keep in mind what their schedule, what their hours of operation are throughout the week, because they're going to probably be different than the college. Same thing with the high school library. So a lot of these, annotated bib sets 1, 2, and 3, you're going to have to do the research earlier. You can't necessarily wait until the day of these assignments are due, because the questions I offer next week are really questions you can't BS. They're going to tell me if you really read your source and if you really read it well enough to be able to answer those questions. So that's the other sort of caveat, that you have to be serious and sort of be on your feet with this. You can't be procrastinating at this point. Again, if you have any questions, my inbox is always open. Please email me. Don't wait until you're drowning in a bunch of paperwork to get help. I can do a lot before something is due. I can help a lot before something is due. It's kind of hard for me to help when you ask for it 4 hours before something is due, or after I have already graded a particular assignment, because at that point it's sort of past the point. The other thing is, and I might have mentioned this earlier in a video at some point, you have 6 quizzes. The 6 quizzes collectively are worth 5% of your grade. Not a big chunk, but enough to bump you up if you're borderline C to B, B to A, D to C, that type deal. As it gets closer to May 4th, I will drop one of your lowest quiz grades, only one. If you have a low quiz grade now, that you want me to go ahead and drop, then please email me which quiz you want me to drop, and I'll go ahead and drop that now. But that's the only thing I sort of drop is a quiz grade. Generally, I don't offer extra credit just because in the past, the students that really took advantage of it are students that didn't really need it. They already had a high B or really a high A. The folks that really needed it never did it. And if they start barking about extra credit, it's usually after the due date for it. And I'm like, well, I gave you extra credit. You had 3 or 4 weeks to do it. You didn't do it. Here it is, 6 weeks in, and it's too late to do the extra credit. So at this point, I may offer some extra credit. I'm still sort of deciding that just because of previous semesters and students not really taking advantage of it. But I will see. It may be one or two things of extra credit, but I will sort of take that under consideration and think about it a little bit more. But if I decide to do it, I will let you know, and I will let you know what you need to do to get that extra credit if you want it. Again, I'm still kind of deciding on that, and I will let you know when I make my final decision. All right, enough for me. Next week we will get a little bit more deeper into the whole setup and organization of the annotated bibs. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. It looks like it's going to be sort of a stormy and cooler weekend, possibly. So be safe. Remember, we spring forward on March 13th. So make sure that you have all your clocks and your times and everything. We move up an hour. And just start deciding on a research paper topic. Start drafting your proposal, and start going and collecting and reading your 6 scholarly sources. Until we have another lecture, I will see you then. Have a good day.